Hey everybody, I just got done telling the guys that I have fever right now and a sore throat, so excuse me if I can't think real good or talk real good.
If you
You
fall
Sicko.
know, that's
asleep.
what we're supposed to be doing. Fall asleep? No, I'll fall asleep later. I'll take some NyQuil.
Sicko.
There you go.
Yeah, that's all I've been up to, and watching Kirby Enthusiasm backwards gets better as you go back. What did I do, guys? Did you have anything you wanted to bring up, or what's up with that?
No, I'm just really excited to get this episode going.
Fred,
Why? Why?
anything
Why
to
are
bring
you
up?
excited? Tell us why you're excited.
I'm excited because we're going to be covering the first Horde of Worms, album, and we happen to have, one of the main members, Alex, joining us on this for, a little interview, some chat, and, to listen back to some of the tracks on there and, go over it like we usually do, but this is the first time that we actually had someone, one of the musicians on the album that we're covering on the podcast, so that's why I'm excited.
I'm
Hell
number
yeah.
one.
Yeah, you're the first actual musician that we're covering that's on here.
Woo! The honor is mine.
I think another first. This is the first time we've had a guy on the phone.
Oh yeah, phone call. That's old school.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'm a bit retarded. Technology and I don't really get along, and it's kind of funny considering Horde of Worms was one of the first bands outside of like Mortician, Mysticum, and Cattle-Sexual Urge Motivation that used the drum machine, which is technology.
Yeah.
But that's a little different than the point-click world in which we live today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up because I was trying to find, a couple of bands that, were doing that. I know like Viral Load, Clean Flesh, and Mortician, and Come, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That were doing, the drum machines, but it was like literally all around the same time, like 1996, 97.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a symptom of there not being as many drummers as there are now, and like the skill level for what we wanted to do anyway was non-existent in Toronto at the time. So it was also part and parcel of me not wanting to be in a band anymore and just kind of do my own thing, and that's kind of how it started with me and the drum machine. And yeah.
Yeah, because
Here we are 26 years later talking about this record I made.
Yeah,
Pretty wild.
yeah, I like when I messaged you on Instagram through your labels account. I literally stumbled upon you guys like that day, and I saw you guys had all your info linked in there, so I was able to track get some actual physical records from you guys. I got like the second album, the Wormageddon EP, as well as like some of the Castrum albums that you guys also released on your label too.
That's correct, yeah. Great records, and thanks for the support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
like
really thought Castrum would be a lot bigger than they were.
Oh, yeah, when I heard them, I like it was like kind of like Argosland-ish, like kind of all over the place, sort of like death metal shit that I'm always looking for.
Like
And-
melodic battle metal or something.
Yeah, just melodic, sick, like keeping that as well as being like savage too, and really tight and technical.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't grab on
Yeah,
as well.
and they were from the Ukraine, and there was one of the first people that ever supported Horde of Worms and Bloodbucket was Cornelius from Castrum, and he also does a zine, a printed zine, which is how he contacted me, or how we contacted each other. And throughout the course of like our correspondence and sending, music back and forth, he asked me one day, "Hey, you want to put out my band?" And I was like, "Sure." Because at that point, the only band on Bloodbucket was Horde of Worms, so I was looking to expand that as well at the time. So it kind of worked out well for both of us, and he still runs Bloodbucket Europe to this day. So.
Oh, he actually runs the European side of that?
He does, yeah. Yeah, he's done a great job of like spreading the word of what I'm doing based out of my basement here in Toronto, Canada. World, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, that was I the first release I came across from Bloodbucket was actually Pulp Friction from Scablord. And
Nice.
Actually heard that today for the first time.
yeah, so I was listening to that, and I was looking at the metal archives and all the bands that you were a part of, and also looking at, you ran the label yourself, and I'm always interested on like how many bands like one person is in, and like having a variety of sounds. I wasn't able to listen to Visions of the Night or Sepulchral, but I heard Ammo too, some sick heavy metal.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to play in Ammo for a few years, and to play style of metal that I grew up listening to. So yeah, it was a different crowd, and there were actually girls in the audience, so that was nice. Nice change of pace.
Yeah, they weren't all chopped up on the album covers. They're actually in the audience.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, how did you, get, started with the, metal in general, and enough to be interested in playing, in bands as well as like running a label in the first place?
Well, the latter part was kind of accidental and a bit of negativity on my end, but to start it off, I will say that I'm a Kiss kid. My mom took me to see Kiss because I wasn't into like G.I. Joes or playing with toys or anything like that. I was into riding my bike and listening to this band called Kiss that I really liked. So she took me to see them when I was 5. And to say that it had an indelible impression on me would be an understatement. Terrified me. Still don't like pyro to this day, but when I saw Ace Frehley up there shooting fireworks with his guitar, I was like, that's what I want to do. And from there, my mom was always very supportive of my interest in music, so she bought me what was it, Ozzy Speak of the Devil. That record was influential, and then one of the older kids in the neighborhood asked me, goes, "Hey Alex, have you ever heard Metallica?" I'm like, "No." And then I went home and I was like, "Mom, I want a Metallica tape." And lo and behold, a few weeks later I had Kill 'Em All, and needless to say, that was a far stretch from the Kiss world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That blew me away, and that wasn't until I heard Slayer's Haunting the Chapel, of course, and that was like, by then it was cemented. I was like, oh, I love music, I want to play guitar. It was on a trip with my mother across the country via train, and we were in Calgary. We stopped in a pawn shop, and I was like, "Oh, I want a guitar." So she bought me the guitar. I think it was like $20 or something at the time. And we went into some other store after that, and I saw Spider-Man on a string, and I wanted that, and I didn't want the guitar. And my mom said, "No, you got the guitar. You can't have the Spider-Man on a string."
On a string?
And the rest is history. I got home and started plinking around on the guitar. And eventually it got good enough to, string a few chords together. And yeah, I'm still doing that, to this day. So. that's
I have a
kind of how
similar
it all
experience.
started. With regards to Bloodbucket, it was kind of accidental. I was, again, like I said, I was a bit self-doubting, like, oh man, we're not going to get a record deal. I may as well fucking start my own record label. And the first Horde of Worms album was also the birth of Bloodbucket Productions at that time. So, yeah, that's how that came to be, and I'm still doing Bloodbucket today. So, yeah.
Nice. We have a similar sentiment too, because me and Dan, we're in a bunch of bands and projects to ourselves, and we weren't getting like picked up on any labels, and on our end we weren't really trying. So we just had a lot of releases that we were sitting on, and in the same sort of sentiment as you, we just started our own label as well, and released our own stuff, and we're getting some other people on our distro too. I think one also from the Ukraine, right, Dan?
From the Ukraine on our distro?
On our label.
No, I don't think we have any Ukrainian bands.
Isn't Dungeon Crypt from?
Yeah, Dungeon Crib.
No, he's from Czech.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, we're kind of working a little bit globally. I think we have a band from Indonesia. We're gonna release a band from Chile pretty soon, and
Nice.
yeah, like the Czech Republic, like I said too. Um, it's funny how you brought up your mom and liking Kiss. I had a similar experience. My mom was big into Van Halen, and my first concert, I was probably like 11. My first concert was Van Halen with my mom and my aunt. So I thought that was kind of funny.
There you go. We got to start somewhere, right? Like the kids
Yeah.
today, they can step in and go see Suffocation. Actually, Suffocation's playing here tonight, but I'd rather talk to you guys. So,
I almost went to
Yeah,
that
I
and
mean,
decided not
like,
to.
the youth of today is coming right into, a world where there's so many subgenres and so many different flavors, and it's the magic of the time was a bit different, and it was magical. I think the formation of heavy metal as a genre of music in general, and the influence it had on people like us who just love music and love heavy metal and just want to do it, right?
Yeah, because during that time it was just actually like coming out. There was like the progenitors of like that sort of sort of subgenres, and like you mentioned earlier, being amongst the first to like use a drum machine, and you mentioned it was just not really having access to drummers during that time, and I've heard on the latest Scablord you actually picked up the drums, right?
Yeah, it's all me. Scablord is. It started off as I loved gore grinds. Like when I first heard Dead Infection, I was like, oh fuck, this stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
Short songs, gory like Old Carcass, and just hammering. And I was like, fuck yeah. And so the first Scablord was with a drum machine and inhaled vocals and like just being silly because I just wanted to do a grindcore record. And then I kind of left it alone. And then subsequently, 20-something years later, or about 20 years later, I was like, you know what? I have all this other music, like gory metal stuff. Why don't I just kind of put it all out under the Scablord moniker? And that's what I started doing. And it's like my death metal gore grind output. Because, as you know, with Horde of Worms, it was a mix of black metal, death metal, and grindcore, kind of all in one. And when Horde stopped, I kind of went, fuck, well, what do I do? Well, let me just break it down. Like, initially, I started trying to write a new Horde of Worms record, and I didn't like it. I didn't like what I was doing. It didn't have the same fire or magic that stuff did. And so I decided to break up all of my musical interests into individual genres where I could kind of focus on having a truer sound or a truer idea of what death metal should be or what black metal should be or grindcore or whatnot, right? So, and that was kind of the birth of Scablord. and the various other projects I have.
Yeah.
Of which there's 7 or something that gets retarded. I'm just perpetually creative.
And was that album that you're working on for Horde of Worms, was that the Prelude to Darkness?
No, that was Prelude to Darkness was basically almost a full record ready to go, but the band split just before we were ready to record it. So on the Bandcamp, you'll notice that there's I forget what I called it even, but there's a collection of live takes of songs that would have been on Prelude to Darkness.
Exhumation Ritual?
That's it, Exhumation Ritual, yeah. And I chose the green cover to match, kind of bookend it with the green cover of the first record.
Yeah, what is on that first album cover? It looks almost like something out of a microscope or something.
It's actually a solar flare captured by a telescope.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like the sun.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think I grabbed that off of like a NASA website or something long ago. And I changed the color, and there you go.
Yeah.
The logo on that is pretty awful too, because it was like putting the album artwork and everything together was kind of an afterthought. Like we went and recorded, and it was like we went to go and do all of this other stuff, and it's like, shit, I don't have a logo. So like I hastily drew the logo that ended up being on that record, and then a friend of mine redid it, and it looks a lot better than the original one.
Yeah, a little bit more spiky.
A little bit more spiky, a little bit more proportionate, things like that. But again, it was all of the artwork and liner notes, and the record label itself was kind of an afterthought, because we were just excited to go through the recording process and put out a record, like, woo! Demo tapes were all I had done prior to that, so it was a real feeling of accomplishment to put out that record.
Yeah, to actually get in the studio and all that instead of just like a rehearsal tape or something.
You got it. Like it was full on pro studio. Like Pro Tools was brand new at the time, and it was a real learning curve. And both myself and Brent split the bass duties on that record, and I didn't do the vocals at the time, so we got a mutual friend he was doing a grindcore thing called Noisecore Freak. So our buddy Chris came and did the vocals for the first 2 records.
Yeah, his vocals really stuck out to me, because when I was younger, one of the bands that I really enjoyed and still do is Putrepile. Like he has the same scream as Sean in that, and just hearing that over black metal, and then on top of that having the drum machine, it was just right up my alley, exactly what I wanted to hear. It's like candy to me, honestly. It's like when I heard it, I was like, man, it's too good to be true. Just when you think you heard it all, there's even more. And this is exactly what Horde of Worms was to me, as well as the other bands you have, Castrum and Throb of Offal, too, from Japan.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a heavy fucking record.
Yeah, I went to 3 of them.
Machine.
Yeah, another drum machine too, and they were definitely influenced by Cum, right?
Yeah, it's a T-shirt on in the band picture.
So,
yeah.
I would imagine. So, kind of hoping for a second record out of them, because Moss Funeral did really well for Bloodbucket. Like people like that record. I do too.
Yeah.
I always do sign bands that weren't run-of-the-mill, at least sound different and really extreme. So they were a good fit for Bloodbucket.
Yeah, definitely. Because when I listened to Moss Funeral, I showed it to Dan here I was like, damn, I want to cover this. And then, I got more into Horde of Worms. So I was like, you know what, never mind. I want to do this instead. And I had to seek out this first album and as well as like Moss Funeral and their split with Obsceno on like Discogs. So I was able to grab all that.
Nice.
Yeah, because you weren't able to hear the Throb of Offal, anywhere, their side of the split. You can hear Obsceno pretty much, anywhere. It's like uploaded on YouTube and Spotify
Yeah, it's like
and all that.
DistroKid or whatever.
Yeah, but Throb
Yeah.
of Offal wasn't up there, and I got it last week, and I just can't stop listening to that one either.
Yeah, one of the members went on to do another project called Reek of Wounds and Gas Flames. That's UNZEM, I think.
Oh man, we love that band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Long
that's a
band,
favorite.
But similar style of loud, over bass blown, fucking death metal.
Yeah, drum machine, and they got like the heavy solos over it, and I didn't realize it was from Throb of Offal. Huh.
Yeah, and it's one of the dudes from that who's in did that. So
Damn.
yeah, it's cool, man. It's
Wait,
really wild to think that a little guy from Toronto, Canada, who just has a passion for music, was able to put something out that other people like. And the funny thing is that over the years, I've never really got a lot of feedback, which is kind of funny and kind of eerie at the same time. Because, like, here we are chit-chatting, and I'm like, that album came out 26 years ago, and that's a long time, But it doesn't feel like that to me, because I've been just kind of steady forward, nose to the grindstone, trying to do things. And incidentally, I tried to do a digital release before. It was just after the whole Metallica Napster thing, and just basically around the birth of Bandcamp. And I put out the second album from Worm, which was US-based industrial black metal, like really good mix thereof. Also drum machine.
Yeah.
And
I remember Cuntworm.
I don't know, 5 or 10 years ahead of the curve at that time, and that album, unfortunately, just never took off or got the notoriety it should have got, because I tried to do something different because I saw the writing on the wall as far as like physical releases and that sort of thing. I still like to do physical releases. I haven't put out anything since 2019, but that'll change over the next few months, because I have plans to put out a Scablord tape and do other things as well.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I was like, oh, hopefully there's like a comp of Scablord coming out or something, because I'll definitely get that. And like I mentioned, when I got all the CDs from you a couple weeks ago, I was like, where's the shirt at? I'll buy that too.
Yeah. What happened with the website was that eventually, when Facebook kind of became the thing, I let my websites just go to shit, because I was like, what's the point in paying money to maintain websites if everybody's just on Facebook? So I didn't do anything about like having a website, because Facebook was working for a while, and I didn't like it, but that's what it was. MySpace was a vastly superior platform, but I digress.
Yeah, now nobody's on Facebook.
Shit.
Yeah, and then all the music is lost on.
Yeah, everything on MySpace is like lost.
Yeah, you can't even access those files anymore. You can't even
Yeah,
download them yourself. Can't even log in.
yeah, all the pictures, all the music that was on MySpace is gone forever.
It's terrible because there's so many bands you just find like these relics of their MySpace page and you can't hear it. It's frustrating.
Yeah, that's what I like about what Nuclear War Now is doing with all of these old Eastern Bloc lost relics of albums and stuff like that. It's in a sense preserving the music that existed in other parts of the world at the time, right? So
Yeah.
kudos to NWN for that. They're not the same ethos as Bloodbucket.
Yeah, and with you mentioned you know, your first album, or sorry, let me rephrase this. How did you come up with the idea to like use a drum machine? Was it through influence from like Cum and Mortician and System?
Mm, not so much. It was more band I was in before Horde of Worms became a thing was called Flesh Emperor, and we did kind of deicide-ish kind of death metal. And when that band broke up, I really was like, you know what? I'm done with people. I'm done with the idea of trying to have a band. I had a really shitty old Yamaha drum machine that sounded like, you know, electro or whatever, but I eventually put together a couple of tunes, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy a better drum machine. And then things really started to move forward. And then one day, Brent, who was also in Flesh Emperor, came over and I played him the songs, and he was like, yeah, man, those are cool. Do you want to jam? I'm like, well, the idea is just for me to be a solo artist and just do my thing, but sure, if you want to jam, that's cool. And the first three songs, that first song written for Horde of Worms was Abracadaver. The second song was Of Ice and Wind, and the third was Celestial Void. And from there, Brent and I worked on the rest of the tunes, and we were like, shit, we got an album here. Let's do it. And yeah, that's how that came about.
Yeah, I thought it was funny, you know, like, you know, I didn't realize it was like a solo project at first. I thought it was like, you know, you had the three members in there, and, you know, just decided to go, you know, drum machine. You wanted that style, but, you know, from it being a one-person band, which makes sense with like the sort of black metal as well as like grind edge that you have with this project of being a solo project, you know, it makes more sense like that. Like people wanted to hop onto this, you know, Canadian blasting metal.
Yeah, we started our own genre.
Yeah.
Know, like, Canadian blast metal, because we weren't black metal, we weren't death metal, we weren't grindcore, we were this fucking mix of everything. So I came up with the term blast metal, and we kind of we ran with that for a while.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because people kind of latched on to the whole idea of Canadian blast metal, right?
Yeah, it was funny because like Cataclysm, they'll like what do they call it? Like Mystic Grind?
I think
Northern
they were called, like,
Hyperblast?
Yeah, Northern Hyperblast.
Northern Hyperblast.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do like the first three Cataclysm records.
Oh yeah, they're fucking awesome.
Sorcery.
Yeah.
Temple of Knowledge.
Sadly, they had
Yeah.
but it takes a lot to impress me. I'm more into like if I can't feel what you're doing, if it doesn't make me want to beat my chest and like strangle somebody, I'm really not interested. You know, there's a lot of like everything's been so overproduced, and it's become quite sterile sounding to me. And I like my dirty, filthy, you know, make me fucking beat my chest like a caveman. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, good metal
That's what
should
I
make you
wanna
want to
feel.
punch a hole in the wall.
Yep.
And it's funny because like with drum machines, they don't usually feel like so savage, but there are the few bands that, you know, take it beyond, you know, just keeping the time or something. But I notice like more so nowadays, they're kind of just doing that instead of, you know, you're having like gravity blasts like on the song Dead on the last album, where it's like going like 2 times the speed, you know, for your black metal riff, and it's just making it sound like, you know, unheard of at the time, you know.
Yeah, gravity blasts weren't quite a thing at that time, but they came shortly after. And when it comes to programming of the drum machine, which I spent hundreds of hours doing, one of the approaches I had was like, okay, if we find a human drummer, I want him to be able to play this. So it's like, it's insane, but it's it's in the realm of human capability, especially like when you hear players like George Kalias or Eugene Radchenko and stuff like that nowadays. Like, they could easily play that stuff with their eyes closed. But, at that time, there really wasn't anybody who could step in and do that kind of thing. So, the drum machine, we nicknamed it Phil.
Phil.
Yeah.
Filthy Phil.
Phil's our drummer.
You
Well, of course.
yeah, he filled in.
Yeah, filled in well. And I remember we got tapped to open for Mayhem, the first time they ever played in Canada. And while we were setting up, Hellhammer seemed pretty intrigued with the drum machine. So I stood there explaining it to him, and he started playing on it, and I was like, just, my mind was fucking blown, right? Because I'm like, this is one of the best drummers in metal playing the drum machine that we can use, right? That's a little anecdotal story for you. But yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and
You did eventually get a drummer to play live, though, right?
We did. The first drummer we got was a guy I used to go, there was a metal night here in Toronto, and I'd go there, and they had like $2 beers or whatever, so it was a good time. And I was sat beside this guy for about 2 years, just shooting the shit, talking and having beers. And I was lamenting one day about drummers. Where are the drummers? So he looked at me, deadpan, and he said, "Oh, I'm a drummer." I could have fucking killed him. I'm like, do you want to be in a band? You know what I mean? So his name was Dave, and he played with us for about a year. But there was elements, like he was a great death metal drummer with Florida style, but he didn't understand black metal or grindcore in terms of the approach to the feel of the beats and things like that. So we're like, fuck no, what do we do? Back to the drum machine for a hot minute, and then my buddies were they're a band called Adversarial, and we used to rehearse here in my basement. And I asked the drummer one day, I was like, would you mind, like, do you have any interest in, like, kind of filling in on the drums? And he was like, yep. And I was like, what? And that was the closest we ever came to having a human feel to what Horde of Worms was doing. You can see some of those videos on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of your live performances where you had the drummer, and yeah, it was great. I think you guys were playing what was it? Of wind. What was it? Of ice and wind.
Of ice and wind.
Yeah. And
and maybe one of the new ones, Blasphemy, Lust, and Destruction. I think that's the video you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the one. Because I know Fred, when I brought up Horde of Worms to, our group chat, Fred was actually mentioning that he went to your show where you guys opened up for Inquisition.
Yep.
Yeah, that was before Inquisition got noticed. And that show was like, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10 people there. It was insane. But,
yeah, there were a lot of bands playing that day too.
And I ended up trading a CD with the drummer, and never heard from him. So like whatever. But yeah, we had a pretty good run considering we never really toured. We only kind of played in and around the Greater Toronto area, but we played with. Oh shit! Let me look at some of these flyers here. Razor and Pile Driver, Beneath the Massacre, Fastest Diaz, Aborted, Dying Fetus, Putrid Pile, many more locals and locals.
Yeah, just from that handful, you guys were going across the genres, like fitting pretty much any
names.
bill.
And that was the cool thing about Horde, was the fact that we could kind of fit on any type of bill. Like, I mean, we played with Enslaved and Macabre, and
Damn.
you know, Razor and Anvil. You know what I mean? So, you know, we can kind of cater the set a little bit to, you know, specific, you know, played songs with more death metal riffs or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was a really cool thing about Horde, was our ability to just kind of float through different subgenre shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, because with each release that you guys had, it did have a variety, but I felt like the most was probably on like Wormageddon, and I was like with the first release, it was like a perfect like matchup of the death, black, and grind, and then coming on to your second release, Dreams and Dying Eyes, that one felt like way more grind to me, just with the pace of the songs there, and then with like Unearthly Desolation, that one seemed more like mellow death to me, especially that first song. And when you guys got to, yeah,
there is a, I don't know, like the first record was so raw, and it really captured the sound of what we sounded like when we rehearsed, you know. And with the second record, there was problems at the studio, and we ended up with 3 different engineers on the thing, so the overall sound got a bit lost, and it ended up being a little bit more claustrophobic and, you know, death grind-ish. With Wormageddon, we tried a different production style and left it more open and more dynamic. The tracks on that are a bit, I don't know, Black Death, I guess you could call it. At least that's the way it felt to me at the time. And then Uncreation to me was like probably the pinnacle of what Horde of Worms did musically. Like I really like that record because it's the truest to my initial vision of what I wanted as a solo project, and it turned out that way, you know. And again, you know, after I started playing with Brent, then our buddy Gord just kept bugging. I'm like, no, I don't want anybody else in this thing. You know, it's choosing up. And sure enough, they won me over. And then we had our bass player Gord for a good decade or so. And then after Gord left and after Chris left, we just kind of picked people who wanted to play, as opposed to, you know, thought that they could further their career or some shit like that. You know, like, you want to play this barbaric shit? Yeah, all right, cool. And that's how we ended up with Spiros and Eric from Adversarial. So, yeah, that's the evolution of how things came to be.
Yeah, because
you know, from a recording standpoint, we used the same studio for all of the records except Unearthly Desolation, where we went to Metalworks, which is owned by Gilmore from rock band Triumph. You probably know.
Oh.
And that was like a whole other fucking level of recording studio. And, you know, the production on that, it sounds pretty great.
yeah, that's great sounding.
To touch on the drum machine thing again, what we did, like the first record, was essentially the sounds that I had created on the Boss Dr. Rhythm 660 that I bought. And each subsequent record, what we did was we dumped the drums into the program via MIDI, and then we had actual drum samples, you know, properly recorded drum samples, and we layered those onto the MIDI files to make the drums sound as realistic as possible.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you guys were, going with the times more with you said like Pro Tools was like barely starting when you guys were doing the first record, and yeah, I'm sure it evolved like so much more with just being able to put drum samples over the MIDI tracks exactly, because yeah, with the Unearthly Desolation, it did sound like more full on that end, like especially like the cymbal work too, and it also seemed like your drumming or your programming skills got a little bit they grew as well, because I was hearing like more like fills and stuff, especially like during the slower parts.
So things I became really conscious of was like how mechanical, because our stuff's so blasty. It had a mechanical feel to it, so I became really hyper aware of, still like little things, not to complicate my life anymore with the programming, but, little things to give it that more human feel and a little bit more musicality as far as drums go.
Yeah, because like on Uncreation, you had like, with the drum machine you would expect, just doing like a quarter blast or something. But on that, you're going from gravity blast, you're going to like an offbeat, to like a bomb blast. So like you're just changing up the variety of, your main tools right there, which was, interesting to hear, rather than like being able to do like a technical like drum fill that you can put in as like a groove or something on your DAW. It seemed like more conscious of like what type of blasting you wanted.
Nowadays than it was back then, believe you me. Again, technology is great, but me and technology don't really get along that great overall, as witnessed by our failed 9 o'clock start. But
yeah, we're here now. We're good.
yeah, we're here. We're doing it. I got all the information you could possibly want to ask me, and probably some more too.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask how you found Throb of Offal. Was that through the Obsceno split? Because I know that came out like 2001 or something.
It was a random email that I got from the band saying, "Hey, we like your label and we want to put this out." It was, I had never heard Throb of Offal before, even though I have the Obsceno Throb split. But, again, I have so many CDs, it's ridiculous. But, no, that was just a straight up email, "Hey, do you want to put this out?" And I was at the right place at the right time. I said yes. And we got, I think it was Mike Majewski from Devourment did the artwork on that too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Pretty sure.
Their side, right? Like the black like mask. Not the big. Oh wait. For Moss Funeral, I was talking about the split.
Oh, the split. Yeah, no. For Moss Funeral, Mike Majewski from Devourment did the artwork for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Obsceno side artwork.
The third piece that we put out.
Yeah, because that album art looks fucking great on the Moss Funeral.
Yeah,
I thought you meant the Obsceno artwork looks great.
Oh yeah, I mixed it up. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the?
The Obsceno split. I mean, like, depends on where you buy on the spectrum there, but yeah, that's a memorable cover too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that flies on Spotify and all that.
I thought that was a pretty good Gore Grind release too.
No, their side's great too.
I told Paul when I heard it that it reminds me of Lust. If Lust was like more competent and played Gore Grind.
That's funny. I almost listened to that Lust record yesterday. I ended up putting on something else.
The Genesis of a Satanic Race, you mean?
I do like my revenge. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan wanted to ask what you thought of that record, the Genocide of what was it, Dan?
The Genesis of a Satanic Race, because it seems like when people talk about that record, it's either they like it because it's so like unhinged, and I'm wondering what you would think of that. Do you think that Lust is kind of like controlled chaos, or is it almost like improvisational? Because I know they've opened for like bigger bands. They've opened for like Angel Corpse and stuff. I just want to know what your opinion is on kind of their riff writing and songwriting, because I know that's a solo project too.
I think it's pretty organic in its origins. Um, Maybe a little bit cerebral in terms of what the end result was trying to be. I feel like it was not improvisational. It was thought out, and it was more of, again, trying to articulate musically what a frothing at the mouth rabid dog would sound. You know, that's kind of my.
Okay.
Yeah, because I kind of came to a conclusion like not too long ago, maybe like a year ago or something, where me and Paul were kind of just totally obsessed with Axis of Advance and
Oh, yeah.
trying to find bands that sounded like that kind of mix all the genres into this like war metal context. And I think
Yeah.
that Lust kind of does what Axis of Advance does, but they just do it in a very different way.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's the same as like I don't know, Wanderer versus Ophthalmia. You know, like it's the same guy, two completely different approaches to the end result. You know.
Yeah, I would kind of throw in
I really
Reek of the
like,
Unzen
and
gas
if you're
fumes
not
too in
aware,
there.
You should look into sacramentary abolishment.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we covered them
yeah.
actually on episode 8.
Yeah.
Became Axis, I believe.
Yeah, with Sacramentary, that's like one of our favorite bands too, all three of us, and yeah, we covered them on like a other episode where we covered Distracting Zone.
Yeah.
It's a great
River
record.
River of Cortico
Very,
is
very
probably my favorite
primitive.
Canadian album.
You know, it was like the precursor to war metal almost. You know, like that and like maybe Blasphemy or something would have been like the foundations of what I consider war metal anyway.
Yeah, and like with I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
All good, man. All good. A lot of great bands from Canada. Most of them are unknown. You know, so, I'm going to Montreal in about 10 days or so to a festival called Messe de Mort, and I'm going to
Oh, yeah.
see Blasphemy actually, which is super treat. They got added way after the fact. Again, like in 2019, I think it was, I went just to see Mysticum because I never thought I'd ever have the chance to see Mysticum, and they're like one of my favorites and a huge influence on what Horde of Worms was. Like
Yeah.
it was them, Pale Nazarene, Dark Throne, Bathory. That was like big influence. So yeah, I got to see them. Never thought I'd see that. Let alone they were standing in the back corner of the venue, just minding their own business, and a really drunk Alex was like, I spotted them. Like, no way, buddy. You're not gonna get away from talking to me because I want to pick your brains on stuff. Again, huge influence. And yeah, this year I get to see Blasphemy, but I'm bucket listing Heimsgard, which is again one of my favorites these days because they're just so different. And yeah.
Yeah, Dadomar is great.
Sorry?
I said Dadom's fucking great too.
Yeah. I think also Natafrost and Erhardt is on that, or something like that. It's just going to be like 3 days of solid, lasting black metal and pretty fucking stoked.
Oh yeah. Could you guys hear them too, Dan and Fred?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
cool.
I can hear him.
Making
loud and
sure.
clear.
Yeah, I'm moving around the phone a little bit, but I got it back. Sorry about that. Let me see. I wanted to. Let me see. Let me look at my questions really quick. I have them on my phone. Let's see. What was it?
I have one question while you're waiting.
Here you go.
Shoot.
Fred got a question.
It's about a band you were involved in, but I don't think it was your band specifically, but Sepulcher. I have that one demo from like 2011 and I actually really like it. What happened with that band?
Well, there was a band called Megiddo, and
Yes, love Megiddo.
Megiddo kind of split up, and a couple of the members decided to form Sepulcher, and they were looking for a guitar player, and I don't really remember who suggested me or how I even got in with that, but that was very like Motorhead meets Sacrilege with a little bit of, I don't know, mortuary drape or something. Like, just a really interesting mix, and that band unfortunately didn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
They reformed Megiddo without me, essentially, and played a few shows, and then everything went to hell. So I don't really know what happened, but I do like that record myself. It's a fun listen. You know, it's something that you're not too invested in it. Like, it's not going to make you like think too hard, or like, you know, it's just good old rock record.
Yeah, I think your description of black metal with
long,
Motorhead in it is perfect. It's
fun. It was fun while it lasted. And incidentally, the bass player there, we ended up forming a DD crust band called Kife, and we just wanted to make our one buddy shit himself on stage. That was the whole reason why we formed the band. But it ended up becoming this whole other thing, and we put out a whole demo tape, and kind of took over Toronto punk for a while.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find many of your other projects. I think like what was it? Time of Death, and there was another another band, but I was looking. Oh, Immortally Deceased.
Immortally Deceased. Yeah, that was my first band ever.
Yeah, I was seeing that you guys had the demo there. I wasn't able to find it anywhere, so I was like looking to hear that, as well as not Time of Death, sorry, Vision of the Night.
I did go back and put all of the Immortally Deceased, the Flesh Emperor. I didn't so much do a lot of videos and stuff for Time of Death because he didn't really want that. And yeah, he was an interesting cat. I really liked those records that he put out, and then he changed the name to Nostril Caverns, and I was like, why? Why did you do that? And he's still putting out music today, and it's still, he got a little bit more wacky into the grind, but the first two records were like, especially the first record was just a beautiful soundscape of blasting riffs, and there wasn't a whole lot of vocals on that record, which I also liked. It was different from everything else that was coming across my plate, and there was a lot of stuff that came across my plate, like Volpecula, for example, or Tesseract, or a bunch of bands sent me a lot of stuff that I just, Time of Death was like, yeah, man, I like what you're doing. And it was one guy out of Sudbury, which is, 7 hours out of Toronto, and he just sat in his basement and made this fucking wicked grindcore. And I was like, whew, I'll put it out. And, yeah. Yeah, I think if you look up Nostril Caverns on Bandcamp, you'll find what he's been up to lately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And incidentally, the one time he did play live, he asked me to write and perform vocals, so we did that at one of my Bloodbucket Metal Fests, which was a Halloween-themed metal fest that I did for about 13 years. And, yeah, I got to play with Time of Death, so that was kind of a treat. And I still have the lyric sheets that I wrote for all of the songs, because he didn't have any. So yeah, that was really neat.
Well, it's cool. You as a label, you're putting on whole festivals. You said for 13 years, or what was that? Sorry.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah. It was called Bloodbucket Metal Fest, and did it for 13 years. I tried to scale it, like to get, not to a vacuum level, but to a larger level, and I wasn't able to scale it the way I wanted to do it, so I just put that to bed, because it's a lot of work to put on a festival and manage it and run it and all of that. So yeah, I kind of gave up ghost on that, but I had a lot of good shows, a lot of good memories.
Yeah, I was reading like I forget the guy's name from Bladed Records. He put on like the Ohio Death Fest, and he was saying like, oh man, these labels, like they're not really doing much. They'll push something for like 2 weeks, but there's like here's me like putting on a festival, keeping these releases till they sell out, and that sounds exactly like what you're doing. You're putting the most into Bloodbucket Productions and your other bands that you're affiliated with, as well as your the people that you signed.
Yeah, it's all or nothing, right? Like I'm not going to do anything half-assed, and like I've always prided myself on putting out professional products and professional releases, and trying to set myself apart in terms of you want the latest Metal Blade releases, go somewhere else. You want some really obscure shit from part of the world you didn't think metal came from, I'm your guy. And that was the ethos, and still is the ethos of what I do with that.
Nice. And coming back to Horde of Worms a bit, I wanted to pick your brain on like some of the influences. We obviously went like Mysticism. I wanted to, because like just the way that you're riffing and the whole atmosphere of it being like so cold and like metallic, it sort of felt like Nidden Division 187. Like
oh, I love that record.
Yeah, like that's one of my favorite black metal records, and like just the way that the riffing comes across with that drum machine too. It's just like I picked that vibe from it, as well as like Putrepile, but of course they came way later than you guys.
Yeah, it really wasn't a conscious decision to have a certain style or sound. It was just whatever riffs were coming. They had to make me feel something, and when it feels right, that's good enough. And that's when you know that you're in the right place. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of forethought put into the overall sound. What happened was what we created was what we created. Really, like there wasn't a plan in place for that. As far as influences, Brent and I were both. He's a couple years older than I am, so he was more on the Bathory side of things. Venom. What else did he really like? Emperor, stuff like that was kind of his wheelhouse. But we were both Kiss kids, so that was kind of our common unity. And for me, it was I don't know, definitely Mysticum meets Mortician. Somewhere, put it in a blender, sprinkle a bit of Impaled Nazarene on there. And, that was kind of where I was at that time. I had just discovered black metal around that time. Like when I first heard At the Stormy Gates of Myth by Immortal, I was like, if this is black metal, I'm about it. Because everything that people had shown me before then was like, not really my cup of tea at the time, because I was a more death metal guy, focused anyway.
Yeah,
And,
was gonna say that's interesting. Like, I know, back then, was it more of people like sort of sticking to their sort of like genre of choice rather than being like more open minded for, like how you said, a clash between mortician and mysticism,
Yeah, I felt it was like there weren't a lot of bands that were mashing up the genres. It's not like today, where we have, DJ black metal or fucking something crazy shit. You know what I mean? Like back then, it was like you kind of had a little pocket that you were more into than not, and you kind of functioned in that pocket. And again, there were maybe a handful of genres back then, as opposed to like the plethora that we have now.
Yeah.
So it was at the time it was more a byproduct of what you were into than trying to think of something new or approach it in a different way. And because of the nature of the influences, we were able to create something that was a little bit different. I don't know. I like to think we did, but
No,
again,
definitely.
I have no real idea because we never got a lot of feedback. One thing that almost happened, I guess, was a point worth noting for you guys was when we did release the record, we shopped it around to various labels, and we got 2 responses. One was from Relapse Records,
Oh, damn.
where they were like, "Oh, we like your stuff, let's try it on consignment and see how it goes." So we got a few copies sold through Relapse, but the big one, and maybe the one that got away, I don't know, was Osmos.
Oh, damn.
And
Oh wow.
Hervé, or however you pronounce it, Herb, the main guy, when he got the record, he was like, "Holy shit, this is fucking excellent, absolutely excellent, pure violence, blah, 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 blah. Let's, I'll take about 30 copies and see how we do." And, man, I think, like, my life would be a lot different if, for example, we got signed to Osmos, because at that time, our label mates would have been like Absu, Immortal, Bark, shit like that, Impaled Nazarene.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, it didn't quite work out that way. Not sure why. I had my suspicions because I sent a letter in Quebecois, which is French, but it's not proper French. And I don't know if he got insulted or whatever. I really have no idea because I've never heard anything otherwise. So,
Damn.
But man, that was close, so close. Yeah, it's what every band dreams of: is being picked up by a larger label and being able to tour the world and see the sights, meet the people, all through music. That's kind of my modi operandi even to this day.
Yeah, especially even back then when people are buying CDs.
And,
Or like that's like the
funny.
only option,
I went on tour, actually, proper tour. I went to Asia with Visions of the Night, which I also played in on the first record and wrote a song on. And Peter sang on the Wormageddon EP, because we were just like helping each other out. It's like, "Hey, you want to play in my band? You want to play in my band? No, okay." And we worked it out that way. So I did get to go to Japan, Korea, and Taiwan playing death metal. And I thought, fantastic. Like, I'm living my dream, And I just like to do more of that.
Life goals.
Who knows? Maybe I'll take out the drum machine again and do a one-man project, kind of like Future Piles.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just saw him like a month or two ago, so He's just doing his shows with set up just by himself.
Hey man,
Guys getting beat up
play
at
some
pizza
shows in
pile
Toronto.
shows.
Play some shows in
And
Toronto.
when I
I'll be
saw
there.
it, I was like, fuck yeah, man. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. You know? I didn't expect to have delusions of grandeur and, you know, actually form a band and have other members. That was not the goal,
Yeah.
but what happened. So, you know, I'm greater for it. I'm better for it. And the whole experience was fantastic. And the fact that 26 years later, I'm talking to 3 dudes from California about this record is fucking big wild, man.
Yeah, we got a.
I did not expect that, and I was kind of like, oh shit, really? Cool, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I didn't want to scare you away too much. I was like, oh man, I would love to do like an interview or have you on the podcast or something. I didn't want to frighten you. So I was like,
No, it was really cool.
And-
It's really cool to know that my music has, you know, A, lasted as long as it has, and B, it still continues to touch people in some way. It's fantastic. It's all I could ever ask for as a musician, you know.
and we actually got 2 guys from California and then 1 guy right in Toronto. So that's why he was able to go to some of those shows that you played. Fred.
Just the one. I don't know how. I was going to shows since 2003. I only saw Horde of Worms once. Don't even know how that happened.
2003, yeah, we didn't play a whole lot in 2003 to 2008 or something. We didn't do a whole lot of shows.
Okay.
You know, we were too busy. Like Brent had a child and you know, got married and all of that, right? So all of these life things play into the whole thing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, the opening for Inquisition was the only time I got to see you guys, but I didn't know you guys when you played. I wasn't familiar with Horde of Worms yet. I remember enjoying it, but unfortunately because I wasn't familiar with you guys, I don't remember a whole lot about the show other than the bands I already knew at the time. But since then, I've gotten to know Horde of Worms, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had known before I saw you guys.
Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, you know. Like, I couldn't have imagined having this conversation today because it's been so long, and I'm so forward thinking, and you know, I got releases coming out to Wazoo. And I'm just like, and then to take a second and go, hey, yeah, you know what, that album is really good, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot I can say about it. Like, for example, the intro, Onwards, Procession, Gruesome Discoveries. At the time, a lot of bands were using intros, like
Oh yeah.
either movie samples or, you know, classical music or something. So I had decided that, you know what, I'm going to write an intro as opposed to search for an intro or try and find something to, you know, introduce the album. So that's how that track came about.
Yeah, I love that. It's like one of the heaviest ones. Yeah, it's like
It
one.
went over well, dude. Who doesn't like a good chunk?
Yeah, especially when it comes back in Abracadabra, right at the end with
That's it.
dude. That's like one of my favorite parts. It just switches into that that section.
Yeah, that was one of their more popular tracks, and we always ended the shows with that generally. Yeah, because of it, like just the heavy double bass at the end and the chunky riffs and the screams and like, yeah, that was cool. And
Yeah.
that was again the first Horde of Worms song.
Oh, that was.
Written. Abracadabra.
Yeah, that one has like 3 distinct changes in it too, and it's like it all gels together really well. Or it's at least something that I want to hear because, you know, as a listener, as you know, also being in a band, I get like, you know, bored with hearing like the same sort of monotonous thing. So, you know, when I heard you guys, it was just like, a breath of fresh air and an obsession for, was it been like like 3 weeks now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. So you've had a chance to absorb it then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it usually takes me a couple of weeks to absorb a record, you know. Because during the scandemic, I was like, I have so many CDs, so I started at A, because I'm kind of OCD in the alphabetical sense, and I like to know where everything is.
Oh, you and
Started
both.
with A, and I went all the way through C, and then back,
Damn.
listening to full records of all the stuff that I have collected over the years, and that includes demos from bands that were looking for record deals and stuff like that. And that doesn't happen too often. Like we live in an age where it's like point and click, and just sit down with a full album and really take it in, and kind of absorb yourself in it.
Yeah,
Few and far between. We're a rare breed that does that.
yeah, it's like my preferred. It comes as a whole piece. They're not just dropping singles like like rap or hip hop. It's a whole package that they're giving you. Might as well take it as it's given.
Absolutely. And as a music fan, like I've never really wanted to glaze over anything. I wanted to absorb what the artist is trying to do, whether it resonated with me at the time or not. And there's so much stuff that I passed over, and then 20 years later I'll throw it on and be like, holy fuck, why did I pass this over? Like this is fucking great, But again, we don't live in a world where people are too invested in the artist's overall presentation or work as a complete entirety. Metal is one of the few genres where people still take the time to listen to a full record. But I don't know very many others.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a dying art.
And you were mentioning like other releases for Bloodbucket Productions. Did you have or did you want to say which ones are coming out, or do you want to keep that under wraps for now?
Well, I don't care. I'll promote the shit out of my stuff.
Hell yeah, do it.
And so I'm going to put out a cassette of the latest Scablord. I'm currently writing and recording the new Anti-Human Clica, which is my black war metal side project, I guess, if you want to call it that. And
Okay.
I'll be putting out a cassette of that, as well as a Crypt of Necros, which is my black noise project. I'll be putting out a cassette of that. I'm going to do cassettes for a hot minute, and then I think I'm going to try and do like a vinyl. I've been promising Cornelius from Castrum a vinyl for years, but every time I go to do it, the rug gets pulled out from under me in some way or shape or form, right? So I do plan on doing that as well. And outside of that, the digital revolution has taken place, and I will continue to put out music digitally as well. So that's what's on the burner right now. I also turned myself into a synthwave artist over the last year, and I put out something like 14 EPs in a year.
Oh damn!
So I'm gonna do a cassette of that as well. So I do have plans, but like all things, it just takes time and money. And, I haven't had the time, but I have the money now, so I will be doing that. So you can look at the individual pages, because I don't know. Part of me wanted to do like a proper website again, and I designed one, and I went to put it live, and then something went wrong, and the whole thing went to shit. And I was like, okay. So I just spent 2 weeks doing that, and I wanted. So I try and promote things individually, as opposed to like under a Bloodbucket umbrella.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Even though it is Bloodbucket related, you know, like, again, I'm working on a website. I will have shirts and things available soon, but again, you know me and technology, we don't get along too well, so that's kind of where things are at the moment. It's kind of like I have the plans, I have the artwork, I just have to get around to doing it, and I'm a one-man show, so it's a lot.
Yeah, and just like that's like 6 things for one person to do. You know, that's usually it takes like a group to get at least one thing done. So that's a lot on your plate.
It is, and I'm hyper creative, so I'm always thinking of things. You know, like, oh, I'm gonna do this project now. Like, I did a grindcore project called Cellar Dweller. And that was just me getting my grindcore out and being a little bit political because I've always hated politics. So, that was my one kind of avenue for venting about the current state of the world and such things. And then I did another grindcore project with a guy from Belgium called Gigabastards, and that was kind of interesting. I was at my local bar and I was kind of just lamenting. Nobody does real grindcore anymore, like a Napalm Death Scum era type of thing. And I was like, who the fuck do I know that likes grindcore? Oh, this dude from Belgium. So I drunkenly sent him a text. And I said, if I send you drums, will you make computer noises on it? He's like, yep. I was like, okay. So we put out like something like 6 EPs or 3 full lengths and 3 EPs. I don't know. I don't know what the criteria is anymore. It's like, I think it's a half hour makes it a full length, but yeah, 27 minutes is close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was completely improvisational. Nobody, neither myself or Johan knew what the other guy was doing. And the end results were pretty cool, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on the Big Cartel. I definitely gotta check that out too. I love the logo and all the artwork and stuff. It definitely drew me in.
Yeah, I definitely have a thing for gas masks. Actually, I have another project with the guy who used to play bass in Horde of Worms live. We did back in 2005, I think it was. We did like a really raw basement black metal, war metal demo called Gas Mask Symphony, and he had a room in the same studio that Ammo was rehearsing at, and we came across each other randomly one day, and we decided to redo it, and we did, and now we just have to finish the vocals and the bass, and there'll be a Gas Mask Symphony record as well.
Nice.
Eventually. Yeah. I'm always busy, always working on music, always trying to grow the label, figure out ways to maneuver in a world that I no longer recognize, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I'm a little older, right? I'll be 50 in June, so I've seen it all, and I'm just trying to figure out where things are going.
Yeah. And you're definitely evolving, especially with like the digital release, and you're trying to do that so early, and didn't really catch on then. But now look at it now.
Yeah, that was a bittersweet moment. It was I was on the right track, just way ahead of the curve. Like the rest of the world hadn't caught up to what I thought was going to happen, what eventually did happen.
Yeah. Well, I think right now it's at that point where we move more into like the record that we're covering, which is going to be the self-titled Horde of Worms release. So we're probably going to go listen to one of the songs and then come back and discuss it a bit, and it'll be the first time actually having the musician who performed on it talk with us on it. So yeah, we're just gonna go right into that. So I picked 3 songs. The first one I want to do is When the Forest Rains. Yeah, so we'll be right back. All right, we're back from listening to When the Forest Rains, Desire. What do you guys
That
think?
sucked. That sucked.
Ooh, you believe the
No,
cannolis on this guy?
that was that was that was one of my favorite
That
tracks
was
on
our
the.
attempt at being more, I guess, more song-centered as opposed to just blasting it out. We really tried to approach it as, an album in and of itself, as far as the song goes. That definitely the most musical of the tracks on this set, for sure. And again, the crickets in the beginning is just we changed the hi-hat to a cricket because it went along with the forest theme of the track, which is really, when you're standing in nature and you're truly connected to it, you really feel the oneness of existence.
Yeah,
That's what the song was about, really.
yeah, with
And
just
again, I live in a very green area, so nature is a big influence on my day-to-day existence.
Green Man.
yeah, and that's just like a black metal, at its core too, and like
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the riffing, you hear a lot of. I heard a lot
Maybe a
of
bit of
Mayhem and even early Cradle of Filth in
influence
that
on
too.
that one.
Arcanum.
Or Arcanum, I
Yeah.
don't know how that's the fucking names these days. Yeah, definitely very musical too. One of the riffs in there is definitely inspired by the Phantom of the Opera. And it always reminded me of it every time we played it. And I think we only played that song once live, maybe twice.
Yeah, the
Man.
intro and outro riffs kind of reminded me of like Swedish mellow death or like Finnish mellow death or like mellow black kind of stuff like Nocturnal Winds or
Or
Vinterland. Oh,
necrophobic, maybe.
yeah. Like probably the second Necrophobic album, if anything, and then
Dark Side.
maybe the song like Crimson Winds from the first Dark Tranquility album, something like that.
Cool.
I got like early Cradle of
Yeah,
Filth too,
I'm
especially like
really
the first two
curious
albums.
to hear what you guys think of it because I know what I think of it.
No,
Like the vibes that you get, like Dark Tranquility was never a band that would cross my mind to sound like. So it was really cool to get your perspective on it as well.
yeah, go for it, guys. Like, I know you guys were bringing up like Mayhem, especially during the transitions of like the the more faster pace or upbeat parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That Mayhem record, Wolf's Lair Abyss, was a huge inspiration for sonic violence. Let's put it that way. It was just next level savagery at the time, and yeah, we absorbed all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like just like I was just hearing like Nidden Division, like where Dan was hearing Dark Tranquility, but just like how cold it is. I don't know. It just seemed like you were very like you had like a restraint on what you wanted to do with the drums because that could have easily been just a blast or something, but keeping that just like that beat with it is just like more than enough and exactly what it needed to highlight the the melody in that riff because even though this is like some grindcore, it also doesn't forget about like metal's melody in it.
Yeah, Brent was always very good for the melodies in the Horde of Worms stuff. He always had, we had two kind of separate riffing styles, but they seem to meld together pretty good. So when you hear the more melodic, musical approach to the riffs, those were largely Brent's riffs because he had a different ear for things. And anytime you just heard like, Nid and Div 187 straightforward fucking grinding, that was more on my end of things. And two writing styles really complemented each other. And
Yeah, they integrated well.
we were a unit for 16 years, so it's nothing to be ashamed of. We gave it a good go, and
Yeah.
still going.
Yeah, because like the first riff, it's like the more melody, and then you guys go into, the little break transition sort of mayhem section, and then the riff that comes after that is just like some nasty ass, like sort of like dissonant, tremolo riff that comes on it. And I was like, it just, how you mentioned listening to stuff, and then makes you want to pound your chest. Like that was definitely it. That riff when it came in.
Nice. And also, one of the things that helped that record in its overall sound was we didn't really fuck with the guitar sounds too much. That's pretty much Brent and myself running straight through Metal Zone pedals, which gives it that brutal, high-end, Von Dur level of torture on the highs. But overall, I mean, that record is still to this day, I'll throw it on, maybe once a year or something like that. I'll go through what have you done lately, buddy? Kind of thing, and kind of do a retrospective of all the music that I put out. That record to me is primitive and musical and barbaric all at the same time.
Yeah, definitely feel that. Because, obviously with the drum machine, you can lean more into, being industrial. But, like how you said, it was, a lot more, down-to-earth, primitive, barbaric, savage. With the...
But also playable on a human level. That was a really key point that I want to make about the drum programming I did. I did it with the intent of a human being able to do it. So it's a little less industrial, a little bit more drummer.
Yeah.
That makes it.
Yeah, which I prefer because I'm a drummer, so when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh, you know what? There's a gravity blast, but it's still like you mentioned George Colias, and you had the guy from Adversarial playing with you guys, so it was well within human capabilities. You weren't having someone. Wow, man, what's a band that's crazy? I can't even think about it right now. Archspire or something, but it's obviously someone playing it.
One of them Japanese brutal death metal bands.
Yeah.
Insane musicians.
Yeah.
I appreciate what they do.
Yeah.
I don't like doing math problems while I'm listening to a record, though. But anything that gets a little techie is. I went through my tech phase.
Yeah.
With Gorguts Obscura and shit like that.
Yeah, I love that record.
Yeah, that was a great record.
But Dan and Fred, what do you guys think of that song?
Like I said, Paul, I was talking about the first and last riff, those single note kind of melodic things. That's what kind of reminded me of Dark Tranquility or Nocturnal Winds or something like that. With this song kind of sounded a bit different to the other ones. It felt more melodic with the way the black metal riffing was. The other ones, how we were talking about before, I was thinking more like Norsecore kind of stuff, like you were talking about Nathan Division or.
Again, When the Forest Rains Desire is the most musically ambitious track on the record. It definitely tried to capture a feel of walking alone in the forest at night type of thing.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah, a
like
little
the
bit, a little
Nagelfar
bit
Vitra
different.
album or
A
something.
little
Like the
bit
way that
different than
album
the
looks,
rest.
that's the way the song
I
could
think the
sound.
only other song that's really comparable to that on the record would be maybe Sacrifice. Yeah, because that's also more melodic in approach.
That's funny because that's actually the song I wanted to bring up after this. But Fred, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I definitely found it to be the most melodic on there, but it's still with that drum machine sound, you still have that like the Night and the Mysticum, Helheim kind of vibe to it. Um, but with the riffs, I hear what Dan's saying, like the Dark Tranquility sort of thing. The bands that stood out to me were Mayhem, especially for that middle part, and actually, I think I already said early Cradle of Filth, like Principle of Evil or Dusk and Embrace kind of era.
Yeah, Principles
Kind of,
actually.
yeah. That
That was
brought it out a lot.
definitely on both myself and Brent's playlists at the time.
Nice.
There you go,
It
Fred,
shows,
right
I
on the
think,
money.
and it does it. It pulls it off nicely, and the crickets. You know what? It works. I like it.
Yeah, that
I
was
mean,
Yeah, I
awesome
like
when
the
he
crickets too.
when he pointed that out on that being the high counting. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's just, we could have left it, but crickets, forests, yeah, it works. It works, and it's just one of the many little subtleties that I've slipped into the music over the years.
Yeah, because I definitely picked that up the first couple listens. I didn't really pick up on that, but as soon as you pointed it out, I was like, oh shit, there it is.
Right? It's very obvious too, right?
Yeah.
It's a literal 4 count. But
And now that
you
Alex mentions
why
Arcanum,
do
the
what
first
everybody else
Arcanum, it
is
makes
doing when
sense.
we can do something different.
Yeah. What were you saying, Dan?
Oh, I was saying now that Alex mentions Arcanum, I'm thinking maybe the first album or something, but that makes total sense.
Yeah, definitely forest feel, definitely organic. Again,
Yeah,
nature is a big inspiration to me on a daily basis. And,
Yeah, because they have the intro on that album where they have like an owl just making noise for like a minute straight, and then they finally go into the song.
yeah,
I've always found
great,
that bands
great
with have
stuff.
that forest feel
Underrated,
kind
in my
of.
opinion.
Yeah. What was that, Fred?
I was just saying, I've found that bands that go for that foresty approach and manage to pull it off, like Iljarn or, like you just said, Arcanum. It almost has like a pulsating feel, almost like a heart of the forest kind of thing going on. And I heard that in this too, so it jives with that.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely pulled that shit off, and one of the standout tracks from this, it was hard to pick which ones I liked the most, but this one definitely stood out right in the middle of the album. So, yeah, great placement and yeah, great melody and
That we did think about. The running order and how songs flow into each other. That we did
is intentional.
have some premeditated thought on how best to present it. Yeah, and when the forest ended up in the middle of the record because of its, it's a little bit of the beginning of the record, it's a little bit of the end of the record, but it's again the most musically ambitious track that we had on it.
Nice.
It's
And
a good centerpiece because it's the longest track on there too, right? So it kind of makes the whole thing revolve around that.
Yeah, sometimes when we were playing it, it felt like it never ended.
Well, it's one of those eternal riffs that you don't want to end, though. I'm so glad you guys brought it back.
And if you didn't hit that groove in the right way, it was just annoying. Yeah, it was very fun track to play, but also, again, a lot more musically ambitious as far as overall song structure, riffs, melodies, those type of things.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Sacrifice as you know, being the next melodic you know, piece on this record, and you know, compared to Forest. So I wanted to actually go and listen to that song. That was my second pick from this album. So yeah, let's go ahead and listen to that one really
Let's do
quick.
it.
All right, we're back from listening to Sacrifice, and Alex was just telling us that he hasn't heard this one in a long time. He was just he came across like a demo tape of it, and he didn't realize what song
Yeah.
it was until so he did.
Right, because there's no vocals on it, so it was just like, what song is this? So I thought it was like something that we recorded and never put out. We basically put out everything we ever wrote, so that's not an option. But yeah, it ended up being a demo version of Sacrifice that I recorded on the Ghetto Blaster with a cheap-ass microphone in our jam space here. And yeah, that song as well, as you can hear by the riffs, a little bit more melodic. I think it started off with like an acoustic guitar of the main riff, but it was like slow, and then we scrapped that and just went, let's just hit it. And yeah.
As you would, yeah. He speeded up the riff. Yeah, like this one definitely stuck out to me with that main riff. It was just, like an earworm, pun intended. Like, and Dan was saying that it was like sounded like a worm digging through the ground, just the way it was like twisting and turning, you know, through the notes, and especially like when the drummer Phil came in with the little double kick section to break up the
Yeah,
to break up
to break it
transition.
up, son. You know, we could have kept the hammer down and kept it going straight through. But again, you know, I really did try with all our material to approach the programming of the drums from a humanly possible point of view. Like it, you know, there's very few drummers that'll just blast all the way through. Like even Christian has fills. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, definitely, definitely one of the underrated tracks I think that we ever did. Like, it was one of the ones that people didn't really latch on to. For the most part, people really liked The Dark and Abracadabra and Celestial Void, I think.
yeah, I'm guilty of all that too. But just man, just that riff and how you recontextualize it at the end too, because it starts off, you know, really slow with the open drum beat to it, and you obviously bring that back at the end. But right before that, there's just like, you know, the more upbeat version of that. You know, it's the same sort of tempo, but just double time on the drums, and it just a whole different perspective on it. And yeah, I love when bands do that. It's like you can do so much more with the riff rather than bringing it back copy paste. You can, you know, recontextualize it.
You can make it dynamic just by, like you say, cutting the timing in half. You know, it doesn't have to be balls out all the time for it to be effective, right? And it
Yeah,
also provides a bit of a break as far as listening goes, right? And it's like, oh, there's a slower section. Oh, but it's the same riff. Cool, you know, like
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah, because it makes those parts, the blasting parts, stand out even more. Like, damn, they're going fast, and you know, if it's all just a blast wall, you're not really gonna get that effect.
No, we were definitely cognizant of dynamic in the context of what Horde of Worms was designed to be, which was just blasting black death grind, you know. Like, but again, Canadian blast metal is more an apropos term for it because we're not black metal, we're not death metal, we're not hardcore, we're kind of everything in one basket. And yeah, definitely a cool track.
Yeah, well, what do you guys think of it, Dan and Fred?
That's probably like the most technical song on the album, right?
Say that
That's what I
again.
would think. I said that's probably the most technical song on the album, don't you think?
Mm,
Between that and When the Forest Rains Desire is you know, they both have their elements of what I would consider complexity. I think Sacrifice was just more of a focus on your picking and hitting all the notes and not exceeding the speed limit type of thing.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of hard for me to articulate what I want to say, but
yeah, just be like more
Yeah.
precise and like hold that, like have restraint and not just, you know, tremolo a riff, you know, and then go back in between doing that, you know.
yeah, it was definitely a very riff-heavy tune, like as far as having the riffs flow into each other and blend with each other without contrasting too much. That was the trick with Sacrifice. It was getting that flow where it didn't feel like all the sections were separated in that way.
No, I definitely feel that with like all your music so far from what I've heard, and you know, on repeated listens, it's not like sectioned. It's like all the components, the whole package together is like you said, you can't call it black metal, you can't call it death metal, you can't call it grindcore. It's all, it's here and there. There's subtlety in each of those subgenres that's coming across every section of each song.
Absolutely. I'm glad you hear that in it, because that's definitely the way we approached all of the material that we ever did, really.
And
That's kind of what we were talking about earlier too,
Yeah,
Paul.
keep it dynamic, keep it different, slightly ambiguous, like you can't quite put your finger on it, but you can't, like you said, can't call it a specific genre, because we're not. We were a amalgamation of all the things that we liked, starting from Kiss and going through Metallica, Slayer, and Motorhead, and Bathory, and Venom, and Dark Throne, and all of it.
yeah. Then Fred, what were you saying?
I was saying that's what we were talking about, like before we started recording. We were still chatting, but when we're comparing notes before we jumped on here, that you pulled out a lot of brutal death metal kind of influences in it, and I had pulled out a lot of black metal influences, and it when you look at the things that we both heard, it seems like we're listening to a completely different band, but it makes sense, right? Like you would follow a lot of brutal death metal, and that's the influences you pulled out of this. And I listened to a lot of black metal, that's what I grew up on, and I pulled out a lot of that on this. And when you put them all together, we're listening to the same thing, but we're just like pulling out the different bits and pieces of it that we're most acquainted with, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, because Alex said, mysticism, mortician, and Impale Nazarene.
Sprinkle that with a bit of Bathory, and you got what Horde of Worms was, essentially.
Yeah,
A multi-genre approach to creating something extreme. Because I wanted to be as extreme or more extreme than Angel Corpse or all of these things, but I'm not Angel Corpse, I'm not Cannibal Corpse, I'm not Mayhem, I'm Alex from Toronto, and this is how I process the music forms that I like.
and I'm glad it's not just like, there's so many, worship bands, with every, big genre, like the Blasphemies, Cannibal Corpse, like you said, Mayhem, Burzum, to Death, and for someone to actually come out with something original, while taking influence from those bands, but, filtering it through themselves is, really refreshing to hear.
And at the risk of giving away one of my secrets, what I consciously did was, over the death metal riffs, I would black metal vocal, and over the black metal riffs, I would death metal vocal or grindcore vocal, just to
Oh, that's cool.
buck the trend. Like you would expect a black metal riff to have black metal singing. Not necessarily in Horde of Worms' case. There was a lot of deliberate conscious effort to do the opposite of what you're hearing, right? So not so much with Chris's vocals, but you definitely get that on the Uncreation and Unearthly Desolation, like when I finally had enough confidence to play and sing at the same time. It's definitely noticeable, but it's always been one of the things that I did in terms of writing music was to consciously have the opposite style on, again, death metal vocals on black metal riffs type of thing.
Yeah, that makes so much more sense, like, because, you would normally, default hear a black metal, screech over the black metal riff. Like Sacrifice, I consider that more of the main riff as like a black metal riff, and
Totally black metal riff, yeah.
yeah, and hearing the death metal vocals over that slow part, it is like that perfect blend of, you're not exactly sure what you're hearing. It's not it's not like pure black metal. It's your mixture of Horde of Worms.
Yeah, again, it was one of the many little subtleties that we did to try and to separate what we were doing from the multitude of other acts that were coming out and, you know, playing metal at the time.
Yeah. Dan,
6 years ago, I still can't
Yes.
believe that. The fact that we're talking about something I did 26 years ago blows my mind, man. I appreciate you.
no,
Also, hello, podcast world. This first podcast I've ever been part of, so hey, cool.
oh yeah, we're
Well, all right.
we're gracious for that. And Dan, what were you thinking of that track?
Well, like I didn't know exactly where that first riff was coming from. My initial thought was like Bethlehem, but maybe that's too
Oh,
easy.
cool. Yeah,
I got like a
basically
sludgy Erhardt out of it.
slow-kicked acoustic riff that got turned electric and tremolo picked. That's essentially what that is, and it's definitely got a black metal vibe to it.
Hmm.
That next in the song that there's like the two-part riff with kind of the thrash beat that changes from like some kind of speed metal thing to like the tail end of a death metal thing. It sounds like it sounds like Grotesque or something. It sounds like Blood Runs from the Altar or like Ripped from the Cross or something like that. That's what it kind of reminded me of. And then Paul,
Cool.
you know that that Cranium kind of does riffs like that. They're basically like speed metal riffs or whatever. I mean, that could almost be like a Razor riff or something. That or you know what that sounds like?
Absolutely. And, you know, like I said, both Brent and myself are a little older, and
Mm-hmm.
we grew up with Slayer and Metallica and like the thrash revolution, and then came the death metal, and, you know, we absorbed all of it. So there's elements of everything in our music, because we
Paul,
didn't,
you know what that
we didn't
speed metal
try
riff
and
sounds like too?
This were.
It sounds like the Holy Terror song. What the hell is that really fast one?
Dead of Pain?
Dead of Pain. It kind of is a Dead of Pain kind of thing.
That's very cool. It's funny you mentioned Holy Terror. I did my very first stage guide ever. It was DRI Creator and Holy Terror. I think it was 1988.
Wow.
Something like that.
Damn.
And I did my first stage guide during Holy Terror's set.
Yeah, it's a legendary tour. I know that one.
Yeah, they put out that one record and it was banging.
They put out two banging records and then they were done.
Did they put out a second record?
Oh man,
They
you haven't
had
heard
two
that?
records, yeah.
No.
Man, check that out. It's one of my favorite thrash metal records of all time.
I think both of them together kind of make Holy Terror like just a terrific band.
Yeah, Mind Wars.
Well, I'll check it out now. I'm always about getting some good old speed and thrash into me. I just did a trade with the label in Thailand, and I got some pretty cool black speed metal, I guess you could call it.
Nice.
What the hell did I get here? I got a band called Dungeon. I got a band called... Okay.
Is Alex on the phone?
Yeah, I think he's checking his records.
Oh.
Either way, like I like trading still, and I think that's one of the best ways for people to get their music in other locations. And black speed metal from, I'm guessing, like probably South America, judging by the tones and the vibes. I have to look into it. I have to update the never-ending distro list. Change it on a weekly basis. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
seen that on Facebook. But
Is that Paul?
I said I seen the distro getting updated like on Facebook.
The
Yeah.
Bloodbucket
I
Productions?
hate Facebook. It's a necessary evil until I get my website up and running, which will be before the end of the year. I promise everyone. I will do it. I swear I will suffer through the
How much does it cost to do a
HTML or
website?
C++
Put
or
together a
whatever the hell
website?
it is now. I don't even remember. But I will get a proper website up and running. I know Cornelius has been a little bit on my ass about that because we don't really like. He's got a page that's attached to the Castrum website, which is castrum.com.ua/bloodbucket, which is.
You guys don't use Big Cartel anymore, do you?
Yeah, I have a big cartel, but I don't want to use a third party. Ultimately, I just want to be able to take payments myself and get things kind of
Gotcha.
out of the PayPal and third party loop, you know. But again, I'm not very technologically advanced, so it takes a little longer for me to get some of these things done.
Well, I got them, so you know it works. I got like pretty much your whole catalog.
Dude, I appreciate that so much because, you know, again, I couldn't have imagined 26 years ago that I'd be talking to somebody about a record that I made. It's wild, and I appreciate the support. For anybody who's listening, thank you. It means a lot because I don't get a whole lot of feedback, so for whatever reason, yeah.
No, this is definitely one of my top tier bands now. You know, it's still fresh and new, but I'm still listening to at least one of your releases from Bloodbucket Productions. You know, every day pretty much. Going in between Castrum, Throb of Offal, Horde of Worms, and you know all the different releases that Horde of Worms has.
Paul, have you heard Time of Death?
No, I haven't.
I actually knew Time of Death
should listen to
before
that, 'cause it's
anything else
definitely worth it.
off the label.
A spin. Especially the first record.
Okay.
I think the guy from Nuclear Hammer was a fan of it.
It's a beast.
Okay.
Paul,
yeah.
you'll like it because it's kind of like Scrams or something. It's like Scrams in black grindcore mode.
Okay. The last Breath of the Dying?
Breath of the Dying, yeah. Check that out. You'll see why I put it out. Put it that way.
Nice.
Again, one of the main ethics behind Bloodbucket is to give a voice and an opportunity to people and bands from all over the world that wouldn't normally get a fair shot or some sort of representation. I know you guys know how hard it is to build a brand and get your music out there. And you know, there's something like 16 million songs a day being uploaded to Spotify. So good luck getting noticed. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, check out Time of Death. It's definitely a grindcore record with darker, just almost black metal elements, I'll say. But without vocals clogging it up with, you know, the typical whatever.
Yeah.
That was one of the unique things that I was drawn to, was the fact that he didn't have a lot of vocals on the record. I think there's like 2 tracks on that first album that have actual vocals on it.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Paul, maybe you wouldn't like it then.
Sonic
It is
of,
mostly like instrumental.
Now I'll still check it out.
Winter nights. Like, I don't know how better to describe it than that.
Now I'll check it out for sure. You know, because you guys released it, and you know you have a great taste for what you've released that I've heard so far. So you know, and
Again, I don't want to release the same thing everybody else is releasing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't want to contribute to the stagnation of a genre that I appreciate and love and has given me a whole lot in this life. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wrote a book, by the way. I should mention that. It's an autobiography. So I've lived a pretty cool life, I think. And I'm just getting it edited now, and it'll be up on digital platforms eventually as well. It's called Metalhead, the Story of One, at this point anyway. And yeah, it details like all of my band experiences in the music world, and the drugs and the sex and the, yeah, I got into reading a bunch of autobiographies, and then I decided to do one myself, mainly because I wanted to be able to know who the hell I was when I'm 80, and you know, it's like who's this that I'm reading about, kind of thing. It was more just for posterity, but it's got all the info and all the dirt on Horde of Worms and Ammo and Flesh Emperor, Gigabasters and Castrum, Bloodbucket, and everything that I tried to do.
Nice.
For global metal, yeah.
Fred and I are the readers, so we'll definitely pick that up.
I can't read.
I'll read it.
I'll email it to you once it's edited.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'll read your book.
I'll read it to you, Dan. Don't worry.
Yeah, Paul can read it to me. Call me on the phone, I'll like fall asleep. I had a cough drop in my mouth, and I had a cough drop in between my teeth, and I sneezed, and then the cough drop like obliterated into a million pieces.
Oh man. Well, that sounds.
That's like legal heroin.
Oh, cough drops. Yeah.
I was gonna say, with that magic trick, we should listen to the final song, Abracadabra, or Cadaver.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's
Without further to do.
For Horde of Worms, so.
first song.
Get her into you.
Yeah, and you said that you end the shows mostly with this song anyway, so it seems fitting.
Absolutely. And the song's about a magician who abducts people, kills them, and puts them back like a reappearing act, but they're dead. That's what the song's about, and you know, a bit of necrophobic kind of guitar lines, or maybe early hypocrisy. You'll hear what I mean.
Nice. All right, so this is the 8th track, Abracadabra. We'll be right back. Alright, we're back from listening to Abracadaver. God damn, that ending. I can see why you guys put that at the end of your set list. It's such like a... Oh man, it's just such a good ending, especially with all the pinch harmonics in between the chug riff. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of pinch harmonics. There's pretty much pinch harmonics in every Horde of Worms song. You'll notice if you listen. But yeah, that song was a definite crowd pleaser. Everybody loved to mosh and slam around, especially at the end there when the bass kicked in. There was like, and then the double bass. When it hammers down, I'm like, that's what metal feels like to me, you know, in a roundabout way, you know. Whenever the double bass kicks in like that, like the other night I saw a band called Frozen Soul. I don't know if you guys know them, but they're Texas death metal, plays old school and simple. And every time that double bass kicked in, I was just like, okay, whose head can I smash in right now? That kind of thing, yeah. And Abracadaver definitely has that for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you get the necrophobic hypocrisy vibes from the Brits?
Oh, definitely from the intro. Get the necrophobic. That's what Dan was saying.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, like, I'm not a big necrophobic fan, to be honest with you, but I appreciate the riffs. Like, I get what they do. I'm more on the dismember side of things, which is kind of influenced on that particular track, like an ever-flowing stream, but my version thereof. And
that's the best death metal album ever made, in my opinion.
Something with an Abracadaver, and I saw somebody on a message board a long time ago going, "Oh, they ripped that off from Horde of Worms." And I was like, "What? Who knew that?" Yeah. Either way, yeah, very cool stuff. It's still one of my favorite Horde of Worms tracks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's your first track, and it's, you know, this is what you guys wanted to do, or what you wanted to do.
Yeah, at the time, that was definitely where I was leaning. Nowadays, I've just refined everything and separated the genres more so. And I'm able to get a different result than what I was doing with Horde of Worms. It's a more concentrated result, where I'm able to explore all the elements of each individual project for what they are, and try and make it the best I can, because now I can record at home. And which is how I've been recording the Scablords and the Anti-Human Kutas and Cellar Dwellers and Giga Bastards and all the other things that I've been up to, of which there are more in the works. I've got a, I don't know, cosmic death war metal thing I'm cooking up, and it'll be a little bit more double bass driven as opposed to black metal, ultra fast polka beats and stuff like that. A little bit more dirty and I don't know, spectral woundish or something like that. A little bit more heavy on the reverb, heavy on the death metal, and focus on more like esoteric themes and lyrics and stuff like that. It's all in the works. Again, I'm only one guy, so there's only so many hours in the day, and I try and fill them all with heavy metal and music, and appreciating the things that we all appreciate.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for that to come out. That sounds interesting, especially with the catalog that you have behind you. I know you'll put a twist on it.
I'll put my own twist on it. You can be damn sure of that. I don't want to put out something somebody else has already done, so I always try and put my own element, like with the Scablord stuff. Like I put guitar solos in it, and things that aren't normally in gore metal and gore grind, right?
Yeah, that's what stuck out with like Throb of Offal too, because they had like these bluesy rock solos, and I heard that on Scablord too. So I was just like, damn, these guys are, obviously in contact with each other, knowing what they want to do. So yeah.
And Vincent Price.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, Scablord, because I didn't want to be known or have Scablord be connected to anything I've done in my life previous, to have it stand on its own merits. So I deliberately kept my name out of it and kept it as obscure as possible. But the second I decided, you know what, I'm proud enough of what I've done over the years with this that I'll put my name to it. And as soon as I did that, things started looking up, and people started paying attention. I'm putting out a split with another band that's coming up. I'm going to say probably New Year.
Oh damn, that's pretty soon.
Yeah. So, again, I've got 2 projects on my computer right now, because if I get kind of stuck on one, I can turn my focus to another project and work on that until I get inspired enough to finish what I was doing or get it right, or however it is. I'm not sure half of the time either. So.
Nice. Man, what do you guys think of that track, Fred and Dan? Because that's just definitely one that stuck out to me too. Like I know for sure I wanted that one to be one of the samples, just because how it starts out and how it ends are like completely different spectrums, but it's all one picture.
Yeah, I love that it starts off with that, again, the necrophobic kind of melodic riff, and as it goes further into it, it was the grindier, naked whipper sort of thing. And at the end, without even realizing it, with all the skronkiness, I'm like, where did Incantation come from? And just blew out of nowhere, and it filtered into it great.
I mean, when you don't have a specific genre to focus on, it enables you to connect a black metal riff with a death metal riff in that way. There's no preset structure that you need to follow, which is one of the things that I guess I'm most proud of with Horde, was the fact that we didn't sound like anybody else. Like, you put on a Horde of Worms record, and you're not going to think it's pick a band. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And Dan,
it's unique unto itself, and I aim to do that with everything that I do, regardless of whether or not I pigeonhole myself purposely into like death metal for Scablord and black metal for Anti-Human Kuta and all the other things.
Dan,
but even in pigeonholing myself, I don't view the creative process in a rigid way. Like, if it works, it works. Period. And I think more musicians should stop limiting themselves to specific genres, or at least in the creative process. Don't limit yourself to just thinking about, it's got to be death metal, or it's got to be black metal, or, if it works for you and it conveys your feeling, and it has to have feeling, then you're on the right track.
Yeah, because even within all those genres, they have a broadness to them and a depth that there isn't just the one death metal riff you can do. There's many subgenres within death metal that you could take from that are within that within that whole picture that you can paint out of too, with adding like a black metal edge to it, or even just simply adding like the drum machine to give it that gore grind feel and that grindcore feel that you guys have.
I think all that
absolutely.
also applies
And
to the listener too,
even
right? Like
crickets.
the-
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anything that you can think of and put out, you can mold into something unique and different. You know? And that's ultimately what I look for in bands in general. That, or it makes me want to beat my chest and like go out and crush skulls and stuff. Like that's the kind of thing that drives me these days. It's less about musical ability and genre specific. It's about, do I feel what you're doing? Do you make me? Does it make
Randy.
me feel like I was 12 and listening to Kill 'Em All? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing is more important to me than skill set or production value or anything like that. And anytime you can be unique in doing what you do, you know, let's look at Dot Heinsgard as an example. We started off traditional black metal, and they're not that anymore, but they have that. They have elements of all of that, and it's, you know, limitless creativity, you know, in that sense. And it doesn't matter which genre you're in, you can do that. Like, listen to Disembowelment versus Hypocrisy, or
Yeah, necrophobic too. Yeah.
like there's, like you said, there's a lot of room to experiment and create something new and different. That, you know, especially nowadays when you have access to everything. You know.
Yeah. It almost seems lazy, you know,
In a way, it is, because you don't have to try as hard
yeah.
to see the result. But ultimately, as any sort of creative, you need to have a vision in mind and openness to different things. Like, you know how Shining put saxophones in their music and shit like that, or like one of you mentioned Bethlehem earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You try and put that into a genre. I can't. You know, like
Dark metal. No, just kidding.
That's what they call themselves.
dark metal, DSBM. I don't know.
Yeah. There it is, Bethlehem.
It's something, but it's not necessarily definable in
I think they're too good for that tag.
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. And Dan, what were you saying about the pinch harmonic riff? You're saying it was like felt like heavy metal influence.
Well, maybe not that song in particular. It was might have been track 3 because I like kind of took notes on each track, but not pinch harmonics. There's like a few moments here where it's kind of like those. You know, when you hold your finger above the string, you get those kind of heavy metal harmonic sounds. Just hearing a little bit of that, and yeah, it kind of reminded me of like "See You in Hell" from Grim Reaper or something.
To play the whole riff in pinch harmonics is what I tried to do there.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like a really
like,
old heavy metal thing, like Nightmare or
figuring out a
something.
melody or something to play over top of like a pretty solid chunky riff. I just decided to pinch harmonic it the best I could. Maybe like a little bit of like Cemetery, Evil Shade of Grey. You know how they had that like fucking weird kind of overtone harmonic going on when they were doing the tremolo picking, that type of thing. Yeah,
Oh
that,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was,
It's
that was my.
it sounds like
approach.
he's
Just wanted to be,
tremoloing, but
like,
with like pinching
know.
the whole time.
Nice. I was gonna say, do you guys have any final thoughts just on the record, or have you guys listened to any more of the Horde of Worms like catalog? I know Dan likes Wormageddon the best.
Yeah, that one was my favorite.
And I wanted to get your take or your insight on that album cover, man. It's awesome.
Wormageddon?
Yeah.
I actually met the artist randomly, and they were like, "Yeah, I drew your cover." I'm like, what? You did that? The idea was we were 4 guys in the band, so 4 worms on the cover with apocalyptic.
You got the mushroom clouds.
Yeah,
That works.
it was like I don't really remember how Wormageddon came about, but it was like likely, like I watched like the movie Armageddon or something, and I was like, Wormageddon, yeah, right? Things come to me in a inspirational and random way, and I kind of run with it. Even the band name Horde of Worms, that was originally Brent and I were sitting down watching the movie Hardcore Logo. If you haven't seen that, I recommend it. And there's a scene in there where he's like, the singer was like berating a guitar player for going into a more popular band or something, and he's like, "Yeah, you and your Church of Worms, blah blah blah." And Brent and I looked at each other and went, "Church of Worms, that's a great name for what our project's going to be." And then I decided that I didn't want like a religious connotation to it. And again, it was deliberate in not being anti-Christian or religious in that way. It was more of a Dio-inspired magic, dragons, blood, death, a little bit of everything. Shit, I forgot what I was saying. It is about
You said it was like you like met the artist, and it was with the 4 guys on the cover.
Yeah, that was the gist of it. Was like 4 worms, 4 guys. Here's your nuclear death metal or blast metal or whatever you want to call it, hence the nuclear blast. That's how that came about, and it was hand painted.
Oh damn!
And I don't know who owns the original. I'm assuming the artist still does. And we made a shirt of that, a small run of shirts for the Wormageddon, and sold out of those. And then we made the Mike Krzyzewski designed shirts with the pile of worms on the front. Same kind of concept, but better art. At least in my opinion, anyway. But those are sold out for the time being until I get my shop up and running, and there'll be print on demand merchandise available. I'll make some Horde stuff for you guys and a couple of other things along the way.
Oh yeah, good to know. And Dan and Fred, do you got any final thoughts on this? On Horde of Worms in general, the record, anything?
Yeah, like you were saying, Wormageddon. Paul, I don't know if have you ever played House of the Dead 2?
Yeah.
Yeah? You remember the boss that's like a bunch of worms?
I didn't get that far, man. I just played at the arcades here and there.
The boss is called Tower. And just look at that, it looks exactly like the Wormageddon cover. Watch us see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I stopped playing video games when they went past 3 buttons on the controller. You know what? I guess.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see it.
I grew up
Yeah, House of the Dead. Well, that's an old one. That's
still own. And
that was an arcade game, and then I think they put it on the Sega Sega.
Genesis.
No, it was a Dreamcast, is what they put it
3
on.
buttons, and I can deal with that. And then everything after that had too many buttons for me, and I tried. But yeah. So I have no.
Yeah,
reference
Paul.
to your, video game.
Yeah, there you go.
Final boss worm.
Yeah, old arcade
But
game.
you can send me a picture. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'll send it over. And go ahead, Dan.
Maybe it'll end up on a T-shirt.
There you go.
Who knows?
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, okay. Well, Paul pretty much introduced me to Horde of Worms first, and then Scablord, and Bloodbucket Productions in general with Throb of Offal and Castrum. I think I might have came across Castrum before. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, I've been into metal for damn near 20 years now, and this, Alex's circle of bands and his label is pretty new to me, and that's cool. I think it's cool that there's still really interesting and cool stuff that hasn't been discovered yet by me. And I've never really heard anybody bring up Horde of Worms or Scablord, like Alex was saying. He hasn't heard much feedback, throughout some of the years. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's kind of the whole point of the podcast, is to kind of bring light onto our favorite stuff that's basically not being talked about.
And that's
Yeah.
dope as fuck as far as I'm concerned, because that's the modern day equivalent of doing a zine or promoting a show, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many bands that I discover just randomly, I'll be like on YouTube or something, and like looking at like Octinimos, or I really like that band, but either way, that's just a one guy project as well. But and then there'll be some link, and I'll just click it and be like, holy crap, these bands are great. Like Kiss Ray was one of the ones that I recently discovered that are just like,
Yeah, they're good.
man, they are so savage, and I love the approach to the riffs, and they have their own thing going on, And
Yeah, they even got
so
some like
many-
melodic stuff thrown in
and,
there too.
Again, I appreciate you guys for finding my stuff, for one, and for two, taking the time to listen and having enough interest to talk to me about it. Because again, to me, it's wild. That was 26 years ago that this record came out, and arguably one of the heavier records from Canada at the time.
Yeah, same year as Sacramentary Abolishment. And what's
Yeah.
even more wild? I never thought we'd have a guy on this show who actually has seen Holy Terror. So there we go.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
First stage diet, of which there's been thousands during Holy Terror. And the funny thing was, like, the first time I went to do it, I got up on stage, and then they hit the end of the song, so it was like, bam, and I'm standing there, and there's no music. I'm like, fuck. So I jumped off stage, and I think it was my bandmate, before I even knew him. I think he's the one who caught me before I hit the ground, because nothing was happening. And then I did the second stage dive, and everything was fantastic after that. And yeah, Holy Terror, what a memory.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny. You guys mentioned them.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite bands. But Fred, you have any final thoughts on this? Having Alex on here, Horde of Worms in general, this album.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, this takes me a ways back, right? This wasn't new to me, and it's part of the scene that I grew up in, which is cool. I think it fits into the type of album that we tend to cover on the podcast really well. It blends so many things together, and we do that with a lot of albums where we say,
Yeah.
It looks like one thing, it sounds like another, it sounds like a bit of everything mixed together. We never do straightforward releases, and this fits perfectly into that scope of what we do and what we like to hear. There's so much originality and things thrown together to make a unique mix of sound on this, and it still winds up sounding like the extreme metal that we love, but it's its own entity. It doesn't copy anything, and that's what we like to hear, right? So, doing this was a blast. It takes me back.
That's right.
Much appreciated. I enjoy the feedback, and podcasts like yours are who can understand what's really going on and what's been, what hasn't been. And, it's a different perspective, and I really enjoyed hearing your feedback to the music that I did make. So, again, thank you for your interest in Horde of Worms and Bloodbucket and Scablord and everything else that I do. And, keep doing what you're doing, because it's important now.
Oh yeah, and
Sir.
my final thoughts on this, man. Like, I came across this 3 weeks ago, bought all your Horde of Worm CDs you had. I got more on Discogs from other sellers, and it's been like my obsession lately, especially with you having your own label, putting out great bands, unique bands. Throb of Offal, Castrum. I'll say those a million more times, and I was like,
it sounds like anything else on Bloodbucket, and that's one of the things that I strive to do. So,
yeah,
the vastness of the appreciation, because it is across multiple genres and it is across the world, and thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about what I've done and what I'm doing.
yeah, and like with this podcast, like I've already had like a huge list like that goes on for like what I want to cover, and I had to push all that aside. Like first it was Throb of Offal. I was like, you know what? I pushed everything aside. I was like, I want to do Throb of Offal, and then I came across Horde of Worms the next day, and I was like, no, I got to push that aside, along with everything else that I want to cover and get this out, because, like Dan said, no one's really talking about this, and it's been, you said 26 years since you put out this record and haven't got any feedback, and it's just sad because this is, right in the exactly what I look for in metal. It's like the perfect combination of things filtered through a musician, and it's all here, and you grow with each release that you had, ending on Uncreation. It sounds like, a big evolution from your self-titled, but I think just the rawness, I think just the rawness of it, and the way you blend everything, and the subtleties that I got to listen to even more because I miss the damn crickets. Yeah, it's gonna be something I'll listen to.
Subtleties. And again, like the switching of the vocal approach on death metal riffs, black metal vocals and stuff. Now that you can hear it and be like, oh, okay, that is what it is.
Yeah. And we totally appreciate, especially me, having you on here. I know I was scared I was gonna scare you off to get you on here, and through the technical difficulties we got it, and this is one of this.
We made it through. I can't believe it.
Yeah, and it's one of our it's our first too, especially mine, because Fred interviews other bands, but this is my first taking the reins on this sort of thing, and having someone that's actually a musician of the band, of the album that we're covering, is a milestone in my eyes.
Did a good job, Paul.
Yep, did good.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job, and helping me through my technical difficulties and making this thing actually happen. Fantastic.
Oh yeah. Well, Alex, you got any final words for us, or everybody?
Just keep doing what you're doing, because again, we don't live in the old world anymore, and the fact that you support underground artists and bands and labels, and do a label yourself, you should plug that. It's vital to keeping the music alive and keeping people in the loop of things that they may or may not like. I appreciate all of you guys for doing what you do, because we are the metal community collectively. Bloodbucket, Bunsen Burner, all of it. You know what I'm saying? We are all the worldwide metal community, and we need to support each other. And Instagram, Bloodbucket Productions, Facebook, Bloodbucket Productions. And from there, you'll be able to find all the links to all the various projects that I'm doing: Anti-Human Kuta, Scablord, Cryptid Necros, Stellar Dwellers, Gigabastards, and my yet unnamed other things. And again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about my record.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. That was great.